Good morning, everybody. Happy Monday. We have an amazing show for everybody today. What do we have, Krystal?
Indeed we do. Lots going on this week. Ron DeSantis officially out of the presidential campaign. Can't say that we didn't call it, but anyway.
Yeah, certainly called it.
Lot to get into there. We also have some intrigue on the Democratic side. Dean Phillips, at least according to one poll, may be surging in New Hampshire. Biden's having to wage this weird write-in campaign, but also pretend like he's not campaigning. So we'll tell you about those dynamics as well. And then, of course, there are a lot of updates with regard to Israel and the broader war that now is in full effect. We've got news that the Biden administration is planning for a sustained military campaign against the Houthis, although don't call it a war, even though what is exactly
Police
war?
Action,
if it's
war,
not
whatever.
just continuing to bomb and exchange hostilities with another actor. Anyway, we'll get into that. And Bibi Netanyahu continues to humiliate the Biden administration, once again proclaiming, I don't know why this is a mystery to anyone, that he is absolutely opposed to the establishment of a Palestinian state. This comes on the heels of Biden insisting that he thinks somehow he's going to be able to persuade Bibi that they should actually have a two-state solution. We'll tell you about that. I'm taking a look at Malay's speech at the World Economic Forum. Saagar is taking a look at some mysteries surrounding that pipe bomb outside of the DNC headquarters back on January 6th. So a lot of intrigue this morning.
Yeah, that's right. Also, don't forget, Shelby Talcott should be joining us from Semaphore. So
right.
that'll be fun. We got a guest in the show. We got 2 monologues. Lots of things are going on here.
Jam-packed.
But we also have a discount currently going on for our election season. We can put it up there on the screen, guys. You can go ahead and take advantage of it. It's for our yearly subscription. You can help us out in the election season to help build. We've got our RFK Jr. focus group, which has been rescheduled after the snow that blanketed the Midwest, also blanketed us here in Washington. And Krystal, you are doing a live stream tonight with a couple of friends that we should flag for everyone.
Yeah, that's right. So myself, Katie Halper, Brianna Joy Gray, we are all teaming up to do a live stream with Muin Rabbani and Norman Finkelstein to really break down the ICJ case from South Africa against Israel. What is the likelihood of its success? What might happen from here? So really excited to talk to all of them and break all of that down for you people. So check out that live stream. It's at 8 p.m. tonight. We'll go for a few hours and get into all of those things.
Good luck to you for staying up well past my bedtime.
I told them 10 o'clock is my hard deadline.
10 o'clock?
I can't stay up past
2
10
hours
o'clock.
at 10 o'clock. That's crazy. All right, let's get to the election. As we mentioned, I did a breaking news last night. Governor DeSantis did officially drop out of the presidential race. His main, I guess, contender against him, who was not named Donald Trump, Nikki Haley, immediately reacted to that on the ground in New Hampshire. Here's what she had to say.
We just heard that Ron DeSantis has dropped out of the race. And I want to say to Ron, he ran a great race. He's been a good governor, and we wish him well. Having said that, it's now one fella and one lady left.
Will I be using the name Ron DeSanctimonious? I said that name is officially retired.
So Trump has officially retired. Personally, never thought it was his best work. I think Meatball Ron was far better. But those are the two immediate. Now we've got basically a 2-person race in the state of New Hampshire. Trump kind of making this evident. He's been attacking Nikki Haley now for several days, which has led to a bizarre incident where he seemed to imply that Nikki Haley was actually in charge of security at the Capitol on January 6th. Let's take a listen.
By the way, they never report the crowd on January 6th. You know, Nikki Haley, you know, did you know they destroyed all of the information, all of the evidence, everything, deleted and destroyed all of it, because of lots of things. Like Nikki Haley is in charge of security. We offered her 10,000 people.
So we think, Krystal, he was referring to Nancy Pelosi, but Haley now picking up on this and implying that Trump has lost some of his marbles. Let's take a listen to that.
We need a president for 8 years, even if you have a president for 4 years. The man was going on a rant about how I was keeping Capitol Police from going in on January 6th. He went on and on, mentioned my name multiple times about the fact that I stopped people from being secure on January 6th. I wasn't in D.C. on January 6th. I had nothing to do with the Capitol. It's things like that. He said multiple times that he ran against President Obama. He didn't run against President Obama. These things happen because guess what? When you're 80, that's what happens. You're just not as sharp as you used to be. This is not personal. Y'all know I voted for him twice. I was proud to serve in his administration. This is the fact that we have a country in disarray and a world on fire, and we need to know that we are not giving our kids options of two 80-year-olds going into a presidency.
A little bit more of a general election argument there, Krystal, because I don't think a lot of Republicans feel that he has lost his marbles. But yeah, your overall reaction, DeSantis is out of the race. We certainly did call it, and I guess it's Nikki versus Trump. Good luck to her, I guess, as Trump would say.
I mean, okay, so there's a few things. There's, first of all, the short-term impact. What will it mean in New Hampshire, where we'll get into in a moment? I mean, some polls have shown her in single digits. It seems like the most recent polls have Trump expanding his lead back into double digits. To be honest with you, I don't know that it has that much impact at all in New Hampshire, because Ron DeSantis really wasn't pulling that well in New Hampshire. Is getting like 6% of the vote. So where will that 6% go? Will that be the difference maker? I sort of doubt it. My expectation, we'll do our official predictions probably tomorrow, is that Trump will win New Hampshire and be able to continue that momentum easily into the Republican nomination. So does Ron DeSantis really dropping out make a huge difference for Nikki Haley? I seriously doubt it. Although I have seen some people who are assuming that all of his support will basically go to Trump, and I don't buy that.
No.
I think it's more split.
Yeah,
I think
probably
it's
split.
probably maybe 60-40, maybe even 50-50. I don't know. But I don't think it's a huge difference maker because Trump has such a large lead. On other dynamics, you know, there's a reason why from the beginning, even before all of the indictments, even before all of this happened, you and I were both very skeptical that Ron DeSantis, even at his best, even after Florida did phenomenal in the midterms and Trump was kind of down and out because all his candidates had, you know, underperformed and the Republicans had underperformed. Even at that moment, we were very skeptical because Republicans still really liked Donald Trump. They still really liked him. And he basically was an incumbent coming into this, the way that they looked at him. You had to give them a big reason to move away from Donald Trump. Ron DeSantis proved himself really unable to come up with an argument. I don't think it was going to be an easy thing to do. I don't even know if it was a possible thing to do that would move people off of Donald Trump and towards him. And in addition, perhaps his strongest argument to make was electability. Look at the scoreboard. Not only did you have the example of him on the campaign trail being incredibly awkward, and also, by the way, running a really poor campaign. I mean, the Twitter Spaces debacle, and people can go through the list, et cetera. But I don't think it gave people a lot of confidence, like, oh, yeah, this is the guy that can definitely win. And meanwhile, Joe Biden is so pathetic that you're like, of course Trump can beat him. I mean, anyone who looks at the scoreboard, so to speak, and doesn't think that Trump has a chance to defeat Joe Biden, they're just living in an alternate universe. So, you know, once that was off the table, the potential electability argument, there just wasn't a lot there to work with. So, listen, I know a lot of people are being really hard on the Ron DeSantis campaign. There's plenty of material there to work with. But to be honest with you, Trump ran a really terrible, embarrassing campaign in 2016, and he won. The bottom line is Ron DeSantis was never going to be president this time. He's never going to be president, period. He's just not the guy. And especially when you have a Republican Party, and especially when you have a person in Donald Trump who still really defines the center of gravity in both parties and focuses the debate, everything turns around this man in both parties. So without some gigantic situation that was going to move people off of him, which we have never seen unfold in the Republican Party since he jumped on the scene, I think that this campaign, regardless of how perfectly it was run, was basically doomed from day one.
Yeah, I mean, and look, Trump just has the it factor. You know, Ron DeSantis, whether Trump is in or is out, he's not going to be inspiring the same level of just reverence that people have. I mean, take a look at this. Let's put this up there on the screen. This is the line for people to get into the Trump rally in New Hampshire, where the feels like is minus 1 degree Fahrenheit. It is literally almost zero, minus 30 under freezing in the state of New Hampshire, in Manchester. People were lining up for hours to get in there. Hundreds, thousands. You know, I mean, that's just something that you've never seen anything like that in modern politics. And look, the only place you have seen it, Krystal, like you said, is amongst Democrats who hate Trump. And when they're willing to line up, they ain't lining up for Joe Biden. They're lining up to vote against Donald Trump, to chant, you know, wearing the pink hat. I almost said something else there. The Women's March and all those other things. Nothing wrong with that. It just shows you that it's the inverse, right, of the inspiration that he inspires among some voters is exactly the same thing that he applies for others. The thing is, as you said too, in the state of New Hampshire, just to back up your point, put this up there on the screen just to give people an example of where the current polling is. Trump is currently at 55%. This is in the latest USA Today Suffolk poll. You've got 36% for Nikki Haley. I mean, it's not bad, but it's definitely still 20-some points behind. DeSantis was polling at 6. That's part of the reason that he dropped out. It would have just been this like humiliating twist in the wind for more than a month until the South Carolina primary and eventually going into Super Tuesday. You know, you don't want to finish before, 3 or 4 points. You want to be able to go out, quote unquote, on top after you came in second, possibly curry some favor with Trump. As you said, I don't think all of that's going to go to Trump, although the majority of them, their second choice voter is going to be Donald Trump. They may just not show up to vote. And then, I guess 3% or so would go over to Nikki Haley. Now, listen, it's certainly possible. New Hampshire is a tough state to poll. It's weird. Trump definitely overperformed expectations last time, but things have defied some expectations. This time around, obviously, Iowa was like, a little bit squirrely in terms of where things were going for the exact percentages, even though the Iowa Seltzer poll. But there's no real equivalent here in the state. Plus, you've got the open factor for a bunch of people who may have registered as Republicans to go there. And that's the only reason why she might overperform expectations. But we'll see.
Yeah.
That's the real question.
It's possible.
Right.
It's possible she wins New Hampshire. I don't think she will, but it's possible. I think it is theoretically in the realm of possibility that she wins New Hampshire. If she does, she will still lose every state, including her home state, which is next, of South Carolina, which is, listen, on the one hand, this couldn't have lined up better for Nikki Haley, right? You have New Hampshire early in the lineup, the very first primary state. That's a great state for her. It's probably the best state in the country for her in terms of potential performance. That's fantastic. Then you go into your home state of South Carolina. What could be a better lineup? She couldn't have planned it better. On the other hand, if you go into your home state of South Carolina and you lose, that's game over, right? That's game over. Now, I really am kind of 50-50. I suspect she probably drops out after that, but I'm not 100% sure. She may stay in there, even though it's completely humiliating and embarrassing to then get like 10 percentage points in every state after that. Just as an option in case something does happen with Trump that takes him off the field before the Republican nomination, she's the last one there standing. That's theoretically possible, but I think because, especially of the timeline of his legal trouble, that is not all going to unfold until maybe before the general election and maybe not even before then. But I don't think any of that is going to ripen before the Republican nomination is settled. So it's probably more likely that after she loses South Carolina, that's the end of the road for her.
I saw someone say that, I think it's Harry Enton, who works for CNN. He previously worked for 538. He's one of the better polling analysts. He was like, look, guys, here's the truth. We're shaping up for the longest general election in modern American history. And I think he's right. Basically, we haven't seen something like this. Technically, look, FDR, I guess, certainly had some challengers or whatever back in the day. Probably that's the last time that we ever had such a presumptive nominee here and such a presumptive nominee on the other side, even though, technically the general election was only a couple of weeks. This is, I haven't seen anything like this in a long time where you know exactly who both parties are going to be. Technically with an open primary, at least that's what it was supposed to be. Just to give everybody, again, a preview of the state of the Real Clear Politics polling average. Let's put this up there. So Trump has got plus 15 on average over all of his opponents, roughly in line with what we just saw. 52% average that he's polling at. Nikki Haley at 37.5. DeSantis' average was roughly 7. So we'll see if you equally split that down the middle. You can see it puts Trump right at 55 or so, possibly Haley at 40.
Now, there is one outlier poll that's not listed here from American Research Group. It's not rated highly by 538 for what it's worth. It's like a C+ polling outfit. And they have the race basically as a statistical tie, I think, with Nikki Haley down 2 points, but that's within the margin of error. That's an outlier, but I do want to acknowledge that it exists, that polling is out there. They use a somewhat different methodology. Maybe they're picking up something that other people aren't, or maybe they're wildly off base. Very hard to say. We'll see what happens on Tuesday night. They also have, and we'll cover this too, an outlier poll on the Democratic side. The Democratic race, very difficult to poll in the state of New Hampshire, because you have Joe Biden not on the ballot. People have to write in his name, and that just makes it for, very difficult to predict how that is all going to go down and, what percentage point he will get in the state as well. But just wanted to acknowledge that that exists. One other thing, Saagar, that I wanted to mention, because we played the clip of Nikki Haley picking up on Trump's, confusing her with Nancy Pelosi. And I saw that, too, that he, said he ran against Obama a couple times when he didn't. First of all, I do think it's reasonable to say the man is 80 years old, so these slip-ups are going to happen more and more. That's just the nature of aging. It is what it is. I will also say, though, as someone who talks for a living and talks all the time, I also make these stupid miscues sometimes, so I don't put too much stock in it. But I will say, politically, not only Nikki Haley, but also Joe Biden is picking up on this.
Yeah,
and to your
that's
point
true.
about the general election has already started. Like everybody's moved past these primaries basically and assumes it's going to be Trump and Biden because it is going to be Trump and Biden. Biden picked up on this and was also making fun of it and using Nikki Haley's comments to make fun of it as well. And do I think this is going to, persuade people that Biden is more on the ball than Trump is? No. But it is a classic tactic just to try to muddy the waters. Like if Biden's biggest liability is that he is old and not altogether with it and can't formulate a sentence and all of these things. If you can just muddy the waters a little bit and get people thinking like, yeah, Trump's not 100% either. He also is on that aging decline as well. That could be a useful strategy for Joe Biden. I don't think it's a stupid idea.
I don't think it's a bad idea either, as you said. I mean, what your best, so when you've got a negative, what you want to make sure is that it's not just a negative against you. If you can try to make it so they're like, well, Trump has something too, and you've got a general election voter who's like, well, I'm mad about his aid, I'm mad about his as well, then maybe I'll vote for my second tertiary or whatever type thing. It's kind of like the original documents case where, classified documents for Trump, and then you came out on Biden. It's like, in the moment that happened, it was like, I'm politically, not legally, it's a wash. So that's what you would, really desire, is that the other side does it too. Will it work? I'm not so sure. There's a lot of polling to suggest that Americans are a lot more upset about President Biden's age, or at least much more concerned than President Trump. As you said too, a slip up every once in a while is actually, and again, this is not to be construed as, speaking up for the man. It's just every once in a while when you're on camera all the time, as we have all learned here, you're going to say something, you're going to
Swap your words.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But in the pattern that we've seen with Biden now for years and years, the degradation and the amount of time that he's on camera, and where it's the majority of the time and not the minimal amount of time, as opposed to Trump, where I would say that's flipped, that's probably why it's a bigger problem. But if Biden can try to elevate this, we'll see. Obviously, it's going to be a pretty big dynamic, I think, in the general election.
Yeah.
Like ageism against the two of them while they're running.
Yeah. I also have seen there have been all these resistance liberal conspiracies about Trump's health.
Oh, the lesions on his hand?
The
You mean the
lesions on
golf
his
sores
hands.
that from when he golfs all the time?
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah, exactly. It
No,
makes
it's
total
not.
sense.
Yeah. Okay. I have golfed enough now to know you wear a glove and you don't get.
Or maybe,
I mean, I just,
Yeah.
even as a brand new golfer, I wasn't getting that kind of thing on my hands. Anyway, I'm not buying the golf story, but I'm
Maybe
not,
I'm
I
wrong.
don't know. James Carville's out there like, it's the clap for sure. Which is hilarious. Anyway, so there's that. There's like a video of him where people are like, oh, he's dragging that right leg again. So the
I
resistance
forgot about
crowd
that. Yeah.
is really trying to drum up a lot of concerns about Trump and his health and his mental fitness and whatever. I will say, I don't know about the health thing, but on the mental fitness, I have seen enough clips now of him mixing up words and whatever to say, yeah, this is different than the sharpness that used to be there. I do think, I mean, again, he's going to be 80 years old. Like this does happen. He is, in fact, even though it doesn't often seem like it, he is, in fact, a human being. So I don't think that's like totally to be dismissed. And like I said, is this going to persuade voters that Biden is actually the one who's fit, the most fit and ready to be president, given his manifestly low energy levels and like unwillingness to do rallies or talk to the press or really capably do much of anything? No. But can he make it a little less clear-cut, make it a little bit so that's less of a factor going against him? Yeah, I think he could probably pull that off.
Yeah, no, I think it's possible. We will see. It also depends on terms of the fitness of the two of them. Anyway, let's turn. We got a great guest standing by, Shelby Talcott. She's going to join us to talk about the demise of the DeSantis campaign.
Hey guys, if you like that video, go to breakingpoints.com, become a premium subscriber, and help us build the best independent media organization on the planet.
That's right. We're subscriber funded. We're building something new. We want to replace these failing mainstream media organizations.
So again, to subscribe, it's breakingpoints.com.